And really, the antidote, I would say, to getting through this time with this diagnosed pulse is really a lot of grounding, a lot of ritual, specifically truth telling with Uranus in Gemini, and deep, deep emotional hydration is what's needed. This process is really an emptying out almost of your soul.
There is something going on in the ethers that's really activated right now. A lot of dark energy is being revealed, especially with coronal mass ejections. We're getting a lot of sun blasts on the planet, so we're going to feel a lot of things being released.
It's lunacy. Lunacy and logic
with Lilith and Dr. Charlier.
And welcome back, Cosmic Family, to another episode of Lunacy
and Logic.
Yeah, with your co-host, Dr. Charlier.
And I'm Lilith.
Woo! Yay! Welcome back, everyone. So let us start with checking our pulses.
Well, I want to say that this week's pulse is actually a holy storm. Because I feel like we've been going through slippery emotions, wiry stress, and rising heat in the body and soul. So my diagnosis is slippery, wiry, and rapid pulse.
For me, it would be slippery and wiry for sure. It feels like a little bit young deficient, kind of like on the deep end of the pulse, but definitely rapid and definitely slippery, wiry, and also a little bit deficient, a little young deficient.
Well, it's classic that you say young deficient, because that's the point. The young deficient and I've got rising heat, which is not really young deficient, so I guess it could be a contradiction there. But the yang deficiency, you're still going to be left with excess water.
Yes, hence the slippery.
Exactly. And the point is, I feel like a lot of people have been talking to me about they're feeling this dampness around them. They're feeling a lot of damp is the word that I've been getting. I myself have noticed everything around me. There's just water like everywhere. Like, yeah, if it's raining, it's leaking like into buckets everywhere in the house. Mold is developing. Like, there's just damp everywhere. And I feel like it is a reflection of what's going on in my physical body.
Yes. Well, we're having floods out here in Houston. Everyone probably heard about the floods we're having in different parts of Texas and Houston. So there's a lot of dampness going on, a lot of slipperiness. That wiry, I think, is connected to a lot of stress. I think a lot of people are getting some kind of stress. A lot of things are not normal, or rather with this weather, whether or not people are going through the ringer. I mean, we'll talk about this in the astrology weather report, but there's definitely a lot of stress going on. A lot of things are like shaking up in the world. So I do feel, for me as well, a little bit of a wiry constitution, just because, a lot going on. Even if you have this meditative ritual, you still feel the energetic collective stress happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, the slippery is obviously because it's emotionally charged. It's a Cancer season. We've got Jupiter in Cancer and all of that. But the wiry is very much, for me, a cosmic mirror, and including the rapid, a cosmic mirror of Neptune and Saturn in Aries together with Uranus in Gemini, for sure. And really, the antidote, I would say, to getting through this time with this diagnosed pulse is really a lot of grounding, a lot of ritual, specifically truth telling with Uranus in Gemini, and deep, deep emotional hydration is what's needed. That's our antidote.
Yes, yes. We'll definitely go deeper into this antidote later. But also just to show that like everybody is dealing with the same thing, whether it's personal or whether it's collective. And that's what's really beautiful for us to be sharing a lot of the things that we're experiencing, right? Even when I'm doing what I'm feeling here in Houston on the other side of the world with Lilith have experiencing it in Africa here, we're really kind of getting the gamut of the collective as well as some of the personal problems that we're all facing. So it's nice to kind of listen in and see, what are some ways that we can process and deal with some of these deeper collective emotional slipperiness of Cancer.
Well, I feel like this emotional volatility is really coming from emotional friction, which is happening with that damp stagnation in there, and then the rising heat is there from resistance. So, from a collective standpoint, I really feel like the collective mind is being rewired, and there's signs that the emotional body is in fact lagging behind, which is causing that emotional volatility.
Yeah, on top of like, I'd say the young deficiency is this idea of burnout, right? Where people have been working really hard to make things happen. And right now we're just getting burnt out because the system is failing. The system is not working. That's where we're getting this damp stagnation of extra fluid, extra emotions, right? It's like the whole world isn't working. Everything, the institutions, are no longer helping us. They're not being as productive as we move into the signs of Virgo and Pisces in our North Node, South Node, which is like the world is shifting to a place of being more of service and being able to understand our depth and unconditional love for each other. There's kind of like this emotional stagnation that doesn't know how to manage each other, doesn't know how to work with each other. And I feel like that is building up this frustration on top of burnout because those who have been doing don't want to do anymore because you just feel like they work and they're not getting any rewards, right? Inflation is killing us here, and yet like everyone's working so hard. So I think there's an imbalance of the just reward for the work that we're doing, and I think this is why there's this heavy trying to rebalance of this energy.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely go more into that with keeping it real later on in the episode.
Yes, yes. So let's go into the cosmic weather report.
Let's do it, Charlie.
So what do we got, Lilith? What do we got up in the skies in the heavens at this moment?
So, I mean, no major alignments since we last spoke. The main things that I wanted to focus on today was Uranus is now officially, well, not officially, it goes back into Taurus, but it's moved into Gemini for the first time already. We've got the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries, which remains the talk of the town. And then I also wanted to touch today on the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo.
Yeah, and also let's not forget Pluto in Aquarius, right? We experienced Pluto in Aquarius a few months ago, but with these three alignments coming into position this month in July, I'd love to share. Just so many people have asked me this, and I think it's also in the collective consciousness. Everyone's talking about how these transits represent historical cycles in our history, right? So we have Neptune in Aries and Saturn. So we're experiencing some of the American Revolution, American Civil War times during those days. The American Revolution started off and then created the French Revolution, then became the Haitian Revolution. So we had these revolutions that happened in our cycles of time, and that was during a time. And I think I don't know exactly the right one, but there's Uranus in Gemini, which has been around during both the American Revolution and Civil War. We're now experiencing Neptune in Aries, which also were around those times. And then Pluto in Aquarius was very much the time of the American Revolution and all these different revolutions on the planet. So right now it's the first time that all three are present in our collective. That means that we're already feeling the intensity of what it felt like during a revolution slash civil war slash industrial changes, right? So I think we're talking about very big transits that's happening to us right now collectively that's been repeated in before during wartime. So I feel like right now it is kind of like the internal war happening within us. I think there are definitely some side effects of physical war or physical aspects of this war happening in our collective, whether it's different countries or even different cities internally having kind of these battles.
Well, I mean, like, based on what we've just spoken about in terms of the pulse, I feel like Uranus in Gemini is what is helping us reset our nervous system frequency. Because I feel like it's electrifying your voice, the whole circuitry of your thoughts and your language. So for me, it's not really even just so much of a mental. It's not so much of a mental stimulation as it is like a recoding of our communication. Do you know what I'm saying? A soul recoding.
Yeah, yeah, and I do believe that what's going to happen too is we're going to get, just like in Gemini fashion, the both sides are coming out and telling truths, right? Whether it is what we call the dark side or the light side, depend on what story you're on, whether you talk about the Luciferian versus the Christians, or we're talking about the AI versus non-AI, or the galactics and the hidden human agenda. There's a lot going on the planet. And I feel like this Uranus and Gemini will be kind of like, hey guys, time for whistleblowing. Everybody, here's what's been going on the planet. And let's get real, right? So Uranus and Gemini is going to be really intense, and we just started. So, and we get a glimpse of it when Jupiter was in Gemini this past year. We experienced like almost a stretching and expansion of communication. That's why I think podcasting has become super relevant today in today's ability to get news and information. Social media, TikTok, their censorship or lack of censorship, or depending on what censorship comes out, is filling people with ideas and communication, right? So we're going to have to discern what is considered fake news and what's considered real news, but like without the guise of conspiracies, right? Because a lot of things that were conspiracies are going to come out and is going to become truth. But against this background of like AI created stories and news, we're going to have a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what is considered real news and what's considered fake news.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the truth being revealed. I feel like with Saturn and Neptune now in in retrograde, basically, with Neptune in retrograde, this can like feel like your dreams are delayed. Action can be unsure with all the fogginess that Neptune brings, and it can almost feel like in Aries, like fire is slipping through your fingers. There's our slippery pulse, the fire slipping through your fingers. And this happens as like what you said with the truth being revealed. What actually is happening is Neptune is just dissolving away the illusions, so leaving only the truth. And in this process, I think a lot of frustration is building, and this is where the resistance and the heat is building up.
Yes, yes, I agree. And then also just the burnout. I think the burnout is this like Pluto in Aquarius, right? Where we came from, like Pluto in Capricorn. Everything was just heavy, took a long time. There's a process for everything. Even DMV, getting your license renewed was like such a huge process. But like Pluto in Aquarius, like, hey, let's redo this so that things are faster. And so we are seeing new systems being placed to speed things up because like humanity took a long time to get things done. So now can AI support some of the things that took us for a while? However, now it's like, are we running 100% faster than before? Does that mean that we're going to get even burned out faster? Because now the expectation of producing has changed. We're like, hey, you could do that image in like a week. Now today with AI, in 10 seconds, you should be able to create an image that is good for your marketing. So are we now going to start getting burned out even more? Or, is this burnout kind of making us go, hey, actually, we're doing all this work and it's not even supporting us as humans. It's only supporting the bottom line for your boss, right? And so maybe we are kind of rethinking how do we put our energy toward the things we need to do, we love to do, rather than spending all our young energy, all of our acting and force energy, life force, into doing things that actually helps no one, right? aka the government.
I mean, I agree with you in terms of the burnout because there's definitely some soul pressure happening over here. I think it's ultimately a test of divine timing versus your own will collapsing.
Yeah,
And that's what's causing this, wanting to go, 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 but almost like, there's the action that you have to take to go, go, go is a little bit unsure. The results are not coming through, maybe like you wanted to come through. And all of this is causing this emotional volatility and rising heat once again. It's
yeah.
all tying in, Dr. Charlie. Our pulse and our diagnosis is all tying in.
Exactly. Yes. It's all tying in into what's happening right now. And I think also what's really frustrating, even because we're talking about this whole frustration energy, is this rapid like want to move, move, move. But we are in retrograde season. So we're getting kind of like that teaser episode of like, hey, stay tuned for next season, fall season. We're gonna be experiencing blah 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 blah, all devastating experiences. But for now, let's go back to the retrograde. Let's go back to the things that we are comfortable with, because right now it is a time for us as we move into a retrograde to realize what is it that we really want, which is this whole, we teased into it where all these transits kind of came into this air signs, Aquarius, Gemini, and Aries, right? Fire and earth elements. And so we're getting a very clear glimpse of what will be happening next season. But then we're kind of like, just kidding, we're going to retro back to what we know has been working or really been breaking down in the last season. Yeah, just kidding. Let's do that all over again. And so right now, I think the retrograde are super potent for us. Really to look at ourselves a little bit more deeply, more spiritually, more holistically, more humanistically, if humanitarianly is a word, because as we're moving to these very fast acting energy next season, the summer kind of gives us a reprieve for like, hey, shit's gonna get weird, and if you thought things were weird, wait till they get weird next season. So for now, kind of clean up what you have, what you can, what is around you that no longer serves you, because next month you have to kind of have an empty basket for all the new positive things that's going to come through. You might pick up some crap in your basket, but just like a shopping spree is going to come like a shopping spree, and we're going to be putting stuff in our baskets. But if your basket right now is too full of junk you don't need, then you're not going to be able to go on that shopping spree come the fall season when all these transits kick in.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. And this, I think, is also really the core essence of our diagnosis of emotional damp heat. What's happening here is I feel like we're being asked to, with the South Node in Virgo, let go of overanalysis, perfection, control, in favor of the North Node in Pisces, which is like intuitive surrender, mystical truth, emotional compassion, these things. Because a lot of emotional tension rises because the soul is wanting spiritual nourishment. It's not wanting micromanagement. South Node in Virgo.
Yeah, however, that Mars in Virgo conjuncting South Node in Virgo feels like a lot of this micromanagement or overthinking process where you've done this in your this lifetime, but in many other kind of cycles where we've been overly thinking about things, those energies, those experiences will come back out again for us to release, right? Whether it's like for me while studying, was I overstudying or over breaking down my time to kind of study and couldn't find the right time to study, or was I overdoing it, or how was I kind of limiting myself trying to be perfect and realizing that actually I wasn't moving fast enough. And Mars does not like to be in Virgo. Mars likes to move very fast, and in Virgo it is like Can we go outside the house? Yes, but check that the doors are locked. Check that the garage is locked. Check like all the lights are off. Check that the stove is turned off, right? And it's like, it's like you move really slow just because you're like double checking everything, making sure that your T's are crossed, your I's are dot.
Okay, but the Mars is going to conjunct the South Node, so that boils
Yeah.
down to what I'm saying. You've got to let that stuff go. So Mars in Virgo going to that South Node. This is the best time to let go of some old routines.
Yes, I agree. And also just again routines that we thought we wanted to be perfect. Expectations, I think expectations very big, right? We expect things to be a certain way and they don't turn out a certain way, and so we get emotionally distraught, we get disappointed, we get frustrated. And I feel like this is teaching us that like to reach that Piscean energy of surrender and trusting that things will come out right for expectations, it is kind of making us face that with Mars conjuncting the South Node.
And I think also it can bring up some unexpected moments of grace or creative chaos, dare I say. But with Mars there and the South Node in Virgo, it's because that inner critic is losing power, or it should be losing power.
Yes, exactly. Mars is definitely kind of overdoing the criticism for sure.
No, but exactly. I mean, exactly. And the point is, he's going to get nowhere with the South Node there.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a good time for us to kind of tune in, y'all. Don't get mad that you're frustrated that things aren't moving. Just review the specific task or the specific routines that you're doing and realize that maybe the habit is not good for you as much as you think that it makes you look perfect. It makes you look good. It's probably not, right?
No, because emotional tension arises when the nervous system wants order, but the soul wants flow. And right
Ooh.
now, there's a conflict between that.
Yes, yes. So is it the ego that wants order, or do we want the soul to have flow? Which one will it be, y'all?
Let's hope we give the soul the spiritual nourishment it needs and let it flow, let it. Oh no, it's let it snow.
Let it
I'm like, let it
let us
flow, let it
know, let
flow,
it
let it
go, let it
flow.
flow. Yes, we can sing as many songs we want, but we also do not want to copyright strike again this time.
Did we get one last time?
We got one for this song, so we have to be careful not to put the song in.
Yeah. Okay.
So for us, we are retrograding ourselves and we are reviewing what worked and doesn't work for our show. So as you all can see, that it's important for us to also retrograde is also just a really good time to review stuff. So like we're doing right now live with you all, we had to review our old episode to make sure that we're bringing to you guys the best content we can.
Directly from the divine.
Yes, we're flowing it in and instead of writing scripts out like a Virgo because I want to
Hey,
be in
I'm
that
a
state.
Virgo moon. I've got my notes here. It's maybe not a script, but at least points that we have to talk about.
Yes, it's all in my head right now. I gotta let it all flow.
No, because you and I can talk 3 hours and film it, but the point is we want to try and add value for the audience. So then we've got to, make sure we touch on some important points that we want to share.
Yeah, we can really go into tangents, yo. If you ever listen to our conversations offline, we definitely go for hours.
Well, the key is to bring those conversations online. I mean, we pretty much do it in keeping it real.
Yeah, which shall we go into keeping it real?
I think that was the perfect segue, Dr. Charlier.
All right, let's go. Let's go and keeping it real, y'all.
So my episode update as usual on the it's like these podcasts have become my diary on the progression of my of my kundalini through my 6 and 7 chakras. So, this whole period has been a lot of processing of ancestral karma and collective karma. And there's a lot of pain in there. And the pain has been unthinkable in terms of just fighting with God. Like, why is it that I have to go through this? And it's been the last 2 weeks have been so volatile. I would literally. So, one of the things I am working through, I have the original wound of separation encoded in my system. And So I mean, this is the core of, this is the you can say the root cause of all the wounds, like wound of abandonment. It could even be the root, I would say, the root cause of the wound of low self-worth, all these things. And I would be processing this shit. And the point is, I would literally go from one moment where I'm crying like to the core of my being. I mean, God's talking to me while all this is happening, and within a split second, I'll be crying from laughing. So I'll go straight into crying about the deepest, darkest pain that the human soul has gone through, essentially. And in the same breath, the cry turns into laughter when God tries to lighten the subject up a bit. So it's been extremely volatile. I mean, that is Jupiter in Cancer and everything we've been talking about, that emotional volatility, you know? I mean, I think what others will tell you about the sixth and seventh chakra, part of the pain that is so prevalent, I feel like this process is really an emptying out almost of your soul. Like I said, with Neptune dissolving all the illusions so that only the truth remains. So it's not so much showing you the truth. I mean, in the end, you see the truth, but it's more that, like, taking the fat away to reveal the muscle that was always there. And this process is actually not as easy as it sounds, because basically, I'm now at the stage where I have to let go of all the prophecies I've had. I have to let go of who I think God is, what I think his role is, what I think my role is. In other words, the instructions that he gave to me, I have to let it all go. But it's a letting go of everything. And the problem is that in my particular situation, if I'm being asked to let go of a lot of those things, which is, my own prophecies that I do believe, I know that I'm right because I know what I can see. When God is telling me I have to let go of all of that, that request in and of itself is going against what I believe or how I believe the universe works. It goes against how I believe the natural laws of the universe function. So letting go is not fucking easy, because you have to let go of everything you've believed in up until now. And let me tell you, you'll start to realize as things are falling away, I'm starting to panic because I'm like, but there's going to be nothing left. So what I'm here to report is we're still going to see what is left. I'm still in the clearing out phase, but so far it's not looking good, because absolutely everything is being cleared out and no stone is being left unturned.
Yeah, that's quite the cleanup, and I do feel like this is a lot of people are going through this and have to go through this, just because I feel like we've been. I really feel what you're talking about is really expectations of what it is to believe in anything, right? I think belief has come to also for us is the expectations of what we believe we'll get something out of it, but that's also based on like an old like cause and effect paradigm, right? Where the world believed that if you did this, you would get that, right? And I think right now, what we're learning in that both Virgoan energy but Piscean is like actually God is greater than we know, than we believe. And because our belief has been so small in appreciating this God force, the God force is like, okay, let me kind of rewrite your ability to believe in anything, because you really the reason why you have a hard time believing in God itself is because you are believing like a human in ego rather than believing like a spirit itself that has access to everything, right? And I think what's happening that's really tough, and I know that it's not easy for anyone and for you specifically, just because like your moon in Virgo wants to create the plan for you to take action because you believe that is kind of the plan from the divine. But then by like throwing that away, really the expectation of that allows you to kind of still be in the essence of what you're doing without like the expectation what it will look like. And that I think is what's really difficult. A lot of times we're like, hey, well, I'm here to help the divine, and the divine tells you yell at that kid because that kid needs to be yelled at because it needs to hear that that's not okay. But you're like, hey, I never yelled at kids before. I don't think that that is being divine. And sometimes we're like, no, actually, that child needing to be told that that is wrong to do or something that is dangerous for them to experience, they need to hear that from you. And so a lot of times we believe that like that's not being of service, but maybe sometimes being of service is to be rough, is to be tough, is to cut corner. I mean, not cut corners, but to cut your ties with things that don't work, right? And so it's not always easy because our ego perception believes that if I do this, I get this. And because I've done this so many times, I know and I believe that myself, I can work hard and get paid for the job that I do, right? And so I think a lot of us are experiencing that. We're like, I used to care about working hard to get money to pay for my family, but now working hard and I find out I'm hurting people while I'm here working hard. Maybe I should not be working this hard, right? But maybe I do need to find a way to make enough money to support my family. So maybe working hard, my expectation of that is actually wrong. And so maybe the divine is kind of giving us an opportunity to like look at that differently. But if we're like too stuck on repeating old patterns, this is where I think we're just repeating fallacies rather than expanding our consciousness, expanding our connection with God, because God is going to say, no, there's different ways we can do things. And that's not going to be very easy. You know, I know that breaking down everything you believe in so that you can see, I feel like you can see the divine in a greater lens is difficult, but it is what is needed because a lot of times our own egos, our own expectation of things is actually what limits what God is working with us.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. It's 100% correct what you say, and definitely warrants some re-looking at from some different perspectives because I've got to get through this somehow. But what I wanted to say is, I've seen the dark side of God. I've seen the dark side of me. I've seen the dark side of the collective. And despite having seen that, knowing all of this, that I've seen the dark side and I've seen the possibilities of what can happen, I do currently still have a belief that my work should get rewarded in this life. And that is it's expectation, but the point is I know the kind of person I am. I know the kind of life I led, the actions that I took when nobody was watching. And you know how the natural laws of the universe work, bro. So why? So then, if I have to let go of all that stuff, that's what I was saying earlier. It counters what I know how the natural laws of the universe function. If I don't get rewarded, because if I don't get rewarded, where are we going into the light when good actions are no different from what they were in the past when good guys came last, so to speak? Because that's the point. Everybody's jaded because up until now good guys have come last. This is the reality of the situation. I mean, how long has Diddy been doing what he's been doing? Do you know what I'm saying? There's people that have been doing things for years and getting away with it. Here I am being the core of a good human. I mean, I've also got my dark side, but I'm generally a human of high ethical standards, high integrity, high honesty and transparency, even when I'm not being watched. And so it's very difficult for me to let go of these concepts that God is asking me to let go of, because the way I see it is in, why the fuck must you carry on living then? Why, do you know what I'm saying? Why must I carry on living in this misery? I mean, we're going back now to the suffering and the martyrdom, but it's not even martyrdom anymore. Because now it's not even about doing it for God. Fine, you've got to let go of that as well. Fine. You want me to let go of the mission? I'll fucking let go of the mission. I don't give a shit. Just stop the pain. The unnecessary, what I deem to be unnecessary pain. What is the point? Do you know what I'm saying? If you're not going to get rewarded What is the point? Because at the end of the day, even Job got rewarded. He got, okay, you can't get 10 children back. Fine. I get that. But he still got back something.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is, so I hear what you're saying, and I think there is a fine line between, well, because the fact of the matter is, once you know how the natural laws of the universe work, then yes, it creates an expectation. And what is wrong with that? Because they say that expectation is needed for manifesting, for the law of attraction to be in operation. So I am aware of the fact that God can circumvent natural laws of the universe. But why would he do that in a negative way for somebody that is completely devoted to him? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are the things that I'm wrestling with, Brew. They're deep, they're painful, they're frustrating. And at this stage, my trust is, it's gone backwards again. I felt like last time I said there's been an improvement. Now I feel like it's going backwards, and my frustration with God is growing day by day. It's where I am. Sometimes, as the Kundalini is going through the 6 and 7 chakra, you do have these blissful days because I mean you're close to unity consciousness, so you're like, oh, walking on cloud nine. But it's not enough actually, because the days that are bad are so excruciating that now I'm just at a place where I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to be straight up with you. I don't know if this is blaspheme or what God is going to do to me for this, but I don't even care anymore. I'm at a place where I'm like hating God more and more every day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's really, actually, I'm holding back the tears just talking about it, but it's intense. I used to, when I would wake up in the morning, like on the blissful days, then, I would, the first thing I'd want to do is just, feel God's presence. I'd say some affirmation prayers that are very powerful, that are, helping with unity consciousness and all of that. And now I don't do that anymore. I don't want to feel God's presence in the morning when I wake up. It's very intense. Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe I get what you're saying in terms of there's some really fucked up people out there doing some crazy shit and getting away with it. And I do feel like there's that whole energetic, what I call delayed karma, has been going on for a while now. And I think a lot of us has watched this and it's like really fucked up. However, I do believe that there are things that are happening right now in our world that is trying to clean up a lot of this delayed karma. Because it is the age of the shift of the ages, and it is kind of like, I really think Neptune Saturn conjunct is like the biggest karma return and loop back, because it has gone through a whole cycle of all the way through the 12 zodiacs and rebooted in Aries. So I do think there's a lot to be said about that. Some of my deeper conversation I had with God was also like, what the fuck, God? Like, why are these dark beings, these dark things allowed to go amok in our planet? It's interesting just because I've been my transition in the eighth house, my transit in the eighth house has both introduced me to my father passing, which opened up my own portals to the veil, past the veil, and to know that there are beings on the other side, which now has opened up to, for me as a healer, to be possibly dealing with entity attachment and dark beings who attach and possess others, who start to create psychosis in people. And some people may not believe that dark entities exist and they call it schizophrenic and it's a mental disorder. Those who understand that the veil is really real and there is a veil of thinness of those who pass and don't pass know that this is happening and there's this battle and this dark energy. And so oftentimes I've asked, like, hey God, like, what the fuck? I thought you were almighty presence here to bring us love and light, yet we constantly see people. I've seen this in the spiritual community. There's sex cults that happen. How did these people who abuse people with sexuality get to carry on and make a ton of money running these sex cults? Like, I don't understand. I thought we were doing this with morality and integrity, and yet the spiritual circles are getting abused, right? And so it's like, God, are you not paying attention? Are you letting the other side win? Which I know the other side is God themselves. And so, we can get really upset about this. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I became an uncle to my sister's kids. And I watched him go through teenage years. He lived with his dad, who was giving him and raising him up to be very superficial, very. He was a spoiled first son, right? Spoiled first boy, Asian boy. So there's a lot of stigma behind that, a lot of coddling behind that. But he had a really good heart, but he would do some fucked up shit, like Uncle Charlie, like, why can I go and like mess with this kid? Like, this kid doesn't know any better. Why can't I like beat him up? I was like, what? Like, this is not okay, right? And so I became his villain. I started to restrict him. I started to talk to him. I started to like call him out on shit and say, hey, this is not okay. Why are you doing this? Because for him, like, he gotten away for like 15, 16 years being spoiled brat, believing that he knows better, right? And so there's many situations was being very selfish, being very very arrogant, and just like didn't care about humans. And I was like, why do you think you have this kind of money, this kind of food, and you call somebody who doesn't have that poor and stupid? Like, what does that differentiate you from them, right? And so you start to realize that, like, I'm the villain in his story as a teenager. And I was like, oh God, what the fuck? Like, I'm a good person. I'm not here to be like mean to this kid, but this kid is literally being all the things that I grew up with. I got bullied from kids like him, right? So I was like watching my own history. Like, where do I fit in the cycle of change? Am I going to keep this kid from a bullying another Asian kid? Because I was that Asian kid, right? But in that moment, I have to confront his shadows. I have to confront that he's being a really, really terrible, selfish child. But is it his fault? Or is it his father's fault? Or is it my fault for not being there and involved, right? And so I started to actually get a little bit more involved with him and being really rough and tough with him. And when he started to change, my whole family's like, wow, Charlie, good job. But while I was yelling at him, everybody's like, Charlie, you're so mean. Oh my God, why are you so terrible to him? Oh my God. I'm sorry, no one has told him he can't do that. So he's going to perpetuate that trauma, that pain that he doesn't know is not good for him. And so in that moment, yes, I'm alone. I'm alone yelling, being the mean uncle. 6 months from now, everybody's like, Charlie, oh my God, what did you do to him? He's turned around 100%. He's listening to you. He's willing to like talk about things. He's not just yelling and throwing. He used to like throw things and like make holes in the house. Like, he would just break a wall and like be proud that he was able to do it. See, like, I'm so strong, I can do shit like that. And who's gonna pay for that hole, right? He acted like he was so great that he could break, and then told him, no, with your allowance, you're gonna pay for that hole. And go, why are you being so mean to me? Again, if we don't teach these things, who's gonna learn? And so I kind of realized that, like, playing the villain in someone's story doesn't take away the fact that you're still considered in the greater things of this greater scope of things. You're still doing things with unconditional love. I had to be his villain unconditionally for him to change. So I believe that, when they said God gave us free will on the planet, true people who understand true free will understand that if you don't allow the darkness to run amok in a free will society, then you don't have free will, right? People like to hide the dark stuff. Don't talk about the mean, heavy stuff like loneliness and pain and being disconnected, because that is not of God. And that's not true. Actually, I really believe that a lot of what we consider our dark nights of the soul was the time when God was closest to us and go, I'm sorry, you need to take this pill for you to grow up, right? And growing up is not easy. And I think that's always been the very difficult part for us, is we have expectations, right? My nephew expected things to happen when he like does things, and it didn't happen anymore. So he's like, why did my world change? Oh God, 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 why are you so mean to me? That you brought my uncle here and he is so rough on me and he like doesn't let me do things. But today he's able to do more things because he was put in his place. And I think
But you see, right there, that's some kind of reward.
it's right, but you're not at the reward yet, right? It took him 6 months.
No, I'm saying, am I getting a reward at all? You're saying I'm not at the reward yet. I'm saying the reward may not even be coming.
But you can't. But that's because you're in it. There's always a reward. It's how long you can wait.
Well, I mean, in the sixth and seventh, when you're going through this journey, my understanding, and it's being forced on me, is that you have to let go of reward, and it's taking me straight into fucking martyrdom syndrome. The whole process is taking me straight into martyrdom syndrome. But then the point is, I have no intention of being in martyrdom syndrome. So what does that lead to? It leads to me hating God and not wanting to talk to him. This is where we're at. I can't get out of this. I don't know how to get out of this.
Time. This is time. Like the game is time. We're in linear time. This is why karma is Saturn, right? And time shows up. What is it that we really did get, right? And so this again, most of the really really tough times is always the dark night of the soul, right? Because the dark night of the soul, like in a way, disconnects us from God, but then reconnects us from God from within. And that I think is like that deeper story. And again, we're probably not gonna figure this out now, but this is again your own process, you know. So like, just be in it, because it might take a few more months, it might take a few more years, but I do believe that the reward is the reconnection to source, right? So like for me, like to recognize that I've been a father before, I've been an uncle before, because I had to take on these roles, right? But that's not all me. And in that moment it was difficult, but outside of it, you know, yes, it felt better. But in the moment it's never going to feel good. That's but I feel like if you don't remember this feeling, when you do go through the changes, your changes won't be true because this feeling was forgotten. But if you still feel very angry still, then that feeling will kind of push you past that breaking point. And that's kind of where everything's at, is with a delayed karma and you don't see the effects. The same thing with the good karma. If we don't see what the good karma comes, like what's the point? And the point is maybe you're not supposed to wait for karma, right? Karma is also considered a lack problem. Dharma is considered a positive affirmation. You don't get karma. Karma happens to you when you've done bad, supposedly. But dharma is when you're actually inspired to do God's work through the mission, and the mission itself is divine. You don't need a reward for that, right? And those are just the different um, in the balancing act, right? And we all been in the part where you're like, fuck it, I'm done.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm going from extreme like blissful moments to moments where I've lost the will to live. It's basically where I'm, grappling between.
Yeah. Just you got this. Just sit still in the moment in silence with me and all the people here who are here who get what you're going through, you know. And I think right now it's just enjoy it, as tough as it is. Like you said, it's a crying and a laughing, right? And if you're just crying and not laughing yet, then you haven't found that point where you realize that the medicine is good for you, but right now the medicine just doesn't feel good at all. And that's the process. That's part of the process. And retrogrades are not going to be easier either. I think retrogrades also is meant for us to look at it more deeply into what's happening. Um, but yeah, just also on my end too, like I want to share that like there is something going on in the ethers that's really activated right now. A lot of dark energy is being revealed, and so a lot of attachment and a lot of depression and frustration is happening to patients, to people that I meet. And just wanted to share this, but we were on our way to do an exorcism for someone, and because we planned it with them, the entity chose to hide away from us so we could not do the exorcism. And that entity went into, drum roll please, the hospital. It went to the hospital, it went into hiding. And because it was in the hospital, we were not allowed to be there. And so we were kicked out of the hospital because we were not part of the family. But it's almost like in the hospital, it's like, haha, you can't hit me, you can't get me because I'm protected here in the hospital, because everyone has some dark beings attached to them sometimes in hospitals. And hospitals continue to create space for them. It doesn't allow us to bring spiritual tools and devices that helps clear out dark energy in hospitals. So again, like, and I was really frustrated, but it's like, okay, if it's the lesson that I had to learn, that I get better at doing my practices, then I have to learn. So just wanted to share that, like, when you guys ask for the light, when you ask for God, when we ask for the healing, there's a lot of dark things that happen right before the healing happens. Because if it is connected to, let's say, dark entities who are giving you negative thoughts to think about, you have to release your identity to these dark beings. Some people will go like, "Oh man, who am I if I'm not, the guy with thyroid cancer, the guy with testicular cancer?" Like, if you do not identify with your physical ailments anymore, who are you? And a lot of people are scared of that, so they don't choose to be healed. So that's that deeper conversation where, a lot of times we have to kind of go through the dark night of the soul to also be the one who chooses to heal themselves from that dark night of the soul. And so I just wanted to share that, like, the light is really bright right now, which is forcing a lot of the darkness, the shadows that we're not facing, to kind of latch on even deeper. Okay, so right now it is important to take those deep breaths, clear yourself, connect with your divine guardians in this kind of very intense bright light that's happening on the planet. Especially with corona mass ejections, we're getting a lot of sun blasts on the planet, so we're going to feel a lot of things being released.
I mean, speaking of, let's go into the sacred medicine so that I can start taking my own advice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Charlie, today I've got, because I've been through so much, the sacred medicine was no joke for me today. I am actually practicing what I'm preaching. So today I've got some acupoints, we've got some yoga poses, we've got some breath work. We'll even do a breath work exercise together during the temple door. We've got affirmations, and all these things are going to help with what we've been discussing up until now. This is our diagnosis. So our keywords here is this emotional dampness, the nervous system repair, soul grounding, ancestral release, all these things. So that is what we're going to be looking at for the sacred medicine. And you can pretty much use uh, any combination of these. You can use all of them, you can choose what you want to use. It's really up to you. There's no limits. These are just various things. You can listen to what they're best for and decide if it's for you or not, and take it from there.
Yeah.
So the acupoints, if we start with the acupoints, so these acupoints, if you qualify to needle yourself already, go right ahead. Otherwise, these points can also be done with acupressure, where you will press on the point, say for 30 seconds to a minute at a time. I would do it like for 2-3 minutes. And then ideally, because acupressure is not as strong, it's not going as deep as needling. So with acupressure, I would imagine it would be better if you do this like 3 times a day. So like morning, afternoon, and night, these acupressure points. So of course, let's start off with no less than PC6.
Yeah.
When you're talking about what I'm going through, PC6 opens the heart. It helps with insomnia, with heart palpitations. It's basically, I would say, you're using PC6 at this stage of the game because PC6 means business, especially when you combine it with kidney 3. We spoke about kidney 3 last week. I think kidney 3 is definitely a point we can still be using. Combined with PC6 will really help with that. It will really help with the nervous system reset and emotional anchoring.
Yeah, PC6 pericardium 6 is a very important point that we use for a lot of our chest area. So it's pericardium. It is kind of like the shield of the cardio system. And so it's very important in the chest area because this is a lot of where people get stressed. When we get stressed, your chest gets tightened up. When you are also not breathing correctly because you're really stressed out, a lot of the stress is built up in the cardiovascular area. So pericardium, you'll find it here if you actually measure your 3 fingers here to get 2 suns, right? We call it 2 sun. It's right here between the 2 tendons here. And you'll see it with a lot of these people have these like bracelets where there's a magnet here, and those are usually for when you have nausea, right? And nausea usually comes from the chest area. I find that a lot of times when people have nausea, it's almost like they're not breathing enough. They're not getting enough oxygen, so they get a little lightheaded, and then that nausea shows up in their stomach. So the stomach, the chest are all connected through the pericardium 6, PC6, right? So a lot of times what we want to do is basically just kind of like press it down a few times here, because what you're doing is you're trying to trigger this point here to activate the pericardium channel that then connects to your chest. You can do it on both sides, okay? And so acupressure, you really just look at that. I'm just kind of like pointing it down at the acupressure point right here, okay? You're not trying to puncture it. You know, you're just using your thumb, you're using your finger. You could use a pen or pencil, you know, with no ink, and then you can kind of like press that point.
And PC6 is actually, speaking of all this emotional volatility and tension that we're feeling, you said PC6 is good for nausea. PC6 is actually especially good for nausea caused by emotional toxicity. You know, where you're like crying and like throwing up at the same time. PC6, y'all. PC6 is the future.
And then when you're like crying and yelling so much, you start start coughing because of that. That's part of the lungs, and
No,
that's part of
exactly.
6. So
Exactly.
very important point. And I'd say, kind of going back to kidney 3 again, just that was such a very important one. Kidney 3 was very important for also the adrenal fatigue, for the kidney yang, kidney yin balancing, because I think we're having a lot of water, fire element that's rebalancing, plus a lot of the nourishing aspect of our body, because I think the kidneys are very important in actually supporting our health. We believe that it's all of our, what we call jing, our reproductive energy, our energy to almost like stem cell. And so when you're having adrenal fatigue, that's why people say go to sleep early, go to sleep before 10:30, because then when you go to sleep, what happens is your adrenals gets replenished and they give you enough energy to rest and to have a full day for the next day. So kidney 3 is very important, and I would also like, you know, hit it with your fingers. It's right next to like the Achilles heel. And it's really good in just supporting a lot of what we call the regenerative organs in our body. So those will help with like the adrenal fatigue and all the other excess, you know, fluids or anything like that.
And then, of course, spleen 9, because we've got the slippery pulse. Spleen 9 is a very good point that helps get rid of dampness. And the other thing that I wanted to say about spleen 9 with Neptune retrograde in Aries. So spleen 9 also helps with indecision. Now, in the last episode, we spoke about GB34, gallbladder 34, where we spoke about, you know, indecision. But if you recall, we spoke about that indecision being caused by fear. Whereas this indecision is more being caused by fogginess with Neptune in Aries. So it's a slightly different indecision. It's more, you know, the fogginess being caused by the dampness. And so in this instance, spleen 9 would also be good for that indecision.
Yeah, and dampness in Chinese medicine, we call it dampness, which is this fluid, but it is very similar to what we call mucoidal plaque. It's also called plaque or cholesterol in the West. And so you can see kind of this plaque being more like this gooey mucus that gets into the bloodstream and then it becomes hardened, right? Like plaque, like cholesterol. So that's why all these different names in the West is really just a progression of this fluid, and that's what we call it damp, that becomes more of a mucus and becomes what we call wet phlegm, right? And then it becomes hard phlegm. When it becomes hard phlegm, it becomes this mucus that becomes plaque-ish. And that's what gets
You mean
stuck
the
in.
hard flame is the visible flame? The visible versus
Yes.
the invisible flame.
Yes. So there's both invisible and visible, but also phlegm starts damp and it becomes this mucus, which becomes like this hard mass, right? Hard mucus mass. And so we see it in our digestion, we see it in our on our body. So when we call it body fat, that fat cellulose is also dampness, right? So in Chinese medicine, we kind of like call it all the same thing, and then different phases of that fluid changes depending where it shows up, right? So eventually it can become a cancer, like a blood stagnation, because this mucus has caused this overgrowth in this little area of the blood, right? Because it's stagnation, because of this dampness. So when we say dampness, and so spleen 9 is very good with that, is because it can release all this plaque, all this kind of water retention and fluids in our body, so that we're not retaining all this plaque and mucus in our body.
And then speaking of, because we've got this excessive dampness that we've been speaking about with Jupiter in Cancer, I thought we'd add stomach 40 with spleen 9. And you were talking about, when we were talking about Uranus in Gemini, I believe it was, where you were talking about people are doing a lot of overthinking and so forth. So stomach 40 is really good for those thoughts that are in loop, like loop thinking, or really heaviness around that. So stomach 40 is good for that as well.
Yes. And then yin tong is probably a very important one right here next to the third eye. And so right here, if you kind of like,
Well, I thought yin tong would only be relevant for those who are experiencing like their Uranian inspired downloads if it's disrupting their sleep.
yes, yes, all of it. I think this one's very important because it is kind of like in the middle here of the brain, and for the information to download and really go into the body, you kind of have to have this what we call the third eye, first eye, because it's processing a lot of information. So anytime you're getting kind of like that headache here, or you feel like you're overthinking and you're processing, you want to like hit this point right here and bring it downward, because you want the energy to kind of bring itself downwards instead of getting stuck here in the head when you're trying to overuse your prefrontal cortex.
Well, I guess why I didn't necessarily mention yin tong, but you mentioned all the stuff about the brain. So the yoga pose that I was actually going to recommend as sacred medicine was child's pose or balasana, because that would be good specifically for safety, surrender, and grounding.
Yeah,
And what I wanted to say is you could do that with pressure on the forehead when you put it down. Do it with pressure on the forehead, because that actually soothes the brain as well.
yeah, and I would say because I am seeing a lot of low back pain issues now, a lot more people coming in with low back pain problems. So child's pose is a good one, because as you're doing that child pose, you're kind of like putting almost like you're praying, putting your head down on the ground. You want to arch your back so that it stretches your back, your low back, right? So you'll feel that pull in the low back, and you want to kind of like go forward a little bit more so that your back elongates while your front also moves forward, while your back goes deeper into your squat, because that will really open up the hip, open up the low back here. So please pay attention to that one. It's a really good one.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to recommend was, with all of this, is the magical food that we have for today is cucumbers. Now, this is great for those of you that are in the middle of summer. For those of us in winter, the struggle is real. But what I wanted to say is cucumber has got so many benefits. First of all, it's mostly water, which is completely in line with what we're all going through. It cleans out your arteries, which is also very good. So it's good for that kind of detoxification. It's good for inflammation because we are going through a time with rising heat, which also leads to inflammation. So it's good for inflammation. It cleans the arteries. It helps prevent kidney stones. So it will also help with that access between the kidney and the heart.
Yes, cucumbers is great to eat. And I'm sure people know to put them in your eyes to kind of get that puffiness out.
That or tea bags.
Yes, and that's why it's really good to actually handle water, right? As you're putting here, it's kind of balancing the moisture around your eyes.
Yeah, rather stick with the cucumber over the tea bags.
You never know what kind of tea bags there are out there.
I mean, I didn't want to go too much deeper into it. But so for breath work, because we've got this rising internal heat, I thought we'd do a nice cooling breath today. So I'm just going to explain it now so that you guys can do it. But we'll actually do one together when we're in the temple door segment. But so this breath involves inhaling through the mouth through pursed lips, like you're drinking through a straw. So inhaling for 3, holding for 3, and then exhaling for 6 through the nose. And for those of you who are particularly wiry and a little bit all over the place, if you feel like it's not enough, you can alternate your nostrils in your breathing as well. So that will help cool the system. And that exhalation that's longer than the inhalation, it also helps get rid of excess dampness. So,
Cool. Okay.
and then of course, last but not least, I've got an affirmation that you can, if you don't come up with your own affirmations, you can use this affirmation as part of these rituals. Generally, this affirmation is done best after you've done your acupressure or your yoga poses. And you could even do it with a ritual, say like staring into a candle. So light a candle, stare into the flame, and then you can repeat this affirmation out loud. And it goes, I anchor into the earth as my soul sheds the past. I trust the rhythm, even when the beat is irregular. My nervous system is a sacred instrument of divine awakening.
Ooh, nice.
And so when you're saying that affirmation, if you do it with a candle and you look into the flame, you'll visualize your emotional burdens burning away in the flame.
Yeah, burn all my stress.
Have we got anything else under sacred medicine?
I'd say also one thing is if you're out in the summer, try to not be out in the hot sun during the 12 p.m. hours till like 2 or 3. You know, we've run into we've been to different concerts, different festivals, and people, especially people who talk about Ayurveda and talk about healing through the body and all that, they're all working really hard during the 12 to 2 hours, even like 11 to 3. Like, that's their hottest sun. We should not be out and about moving, using up your energy because you're just depleting and building up fire in your body. That's a good time for us to have that siesta, to go into the house, to relax, to rest. After when the sun has cooled off a little bit, then you can go out and do stuff. Right now, unless you're fasting and you need some heat and you need to go outside to get the sun, avoid the hot sun. I think people try to avoid sun in general by never going out in the sun, which is, again, not good for you because you do need to pick up the vitamins D. But right now, don't go when it's really, really hot in that time frame of the hot being like burning everybody. Let that cool off and then you can go out there. But definitely make sure to get a lot of sun during this time because it is a time in TCM for us to pick up a lot of young energy now, so that during the winter, we're actually preparing ourselves for the winter by doing well during the summer.
And I also wanted to say, actually, crucial with this emotional volatility and stress. I mean, wiry pulse. So 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., in the time that you are in the time zone that you are in, this is the time where the body is working on the liver in Chinese medicine. So if you're having emotional issues and stress, it is highly, highly recommended that you are asleep before 11 p.m., before the focus on the liver of the body, to really help with the processing of all of those things. So 11 to 1 is crucial time for you to sleep. If you like to wake up at the witching hour, that's after 1 a.m. anyway. So do what you want, but sleep from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. at the very least.
It's good information. This is how you reverse aging, y'all.
The elixir of life.
Yes. So are we ready to go into the temple space?
Let's do it. So let's start off with some breath work. The cooling breath that we discussed under sacred medicine. This is where you inhale for 3, hold for 3, exhale for 3. And when you breathe, breathe into the wisdom that you've remembered today. Let the noise settle and let the knowing rise. So, inhale. 1, 2, 3, hold. 1, 2, 3, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let this frequency seal your field, anchor your truth, and harmonize what has awakened within you today.
Yes. Thank you.
So today we were reminded that even in the irregular rhythm, the soul never misses a beat. The fog is not a punishment, it is an invitation to slow down. So with everything that we've been through today, it's a good idea to sleep with a bowl of water next to your bed tonight with all the water energy we've got, because that is the perfect substance that can absorb any heaviness in the emotional residue that you have overnight.
Well, thank you all for joining us.
So anchor the vision, honor the resistance, and remember, you are the temple. Namaste, y'all!
I thank you, everyone. Namaste.
If this medicine moved something in you, share it with someone else who is healing too. Your voice is part of the collective rhythm.